Hey, and good morning, everybody. Welcome back to rotocurve.com. I'm your host, Michael Rathburn, with today's DFS Minute for May 4th, 2015. Had a good weekend, and we're going to catch up as far as some stuff that happened over the weekend. And then we're going to roll into some of the pitching matchups for today and talk about some pricing changes and something very interesting that I discovered on FanDuel. And then I'll give you a brief rundown as far as where you can catch me today and some of the stuff that I've been up to. Let's run down some of the big money qualifiers, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Let's hit FanDuel. User Clone took down a Playboy qualifier, $500 entry. I believe that was on Saturday. And user C Salmon took down the $25 Playboy qualifier, and then also took down the Vegas qualifier as well, which was a $200 entry. And there was a user S Roll on Friday night that took down the $200 Vegas qualifier on FanDuel. And on Sunday, Ganondorf, who is pretty much the king right now in terms of live event qualifiers, the amount of entries this guy's pumping in is absolutely amazing. $500 entry on that one, he took it down. And then M-Bomb, who we talked about, definitely a guy that I've known for quite some time in the industry, took down the Playboy qualifier, the 200 and the 500 over there on FanDuel. So you can see the trend in these live event qualifiers. They're not cheap. They are expensive. That's why, we do recommend as a new player that you do stay away. If they are at 25, fire an entry. If they do run any lower, fire an entry. But anything 200, 500 is just not feasible for a small stakes player or a new player. So, but there are alternatives that we can talk about. Over on DraftKings, they've been running qualifiers. They did one Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They're $1,000 entry. However, you can satellite in for 3, 33, or 100. I don't know if they've changed those price levels yet, but those are the price levels that I've been seeing, and I've been trying to do it at 3 and 33. That's what my bankroll allows me to do. And so why not? It's reasonable, it's affordable, and I can still hedge on some of those entries in 50-50s and heads ups. And if I happen to win in a tournament, then I can take a little bit of that money and then put it towards a satellite. So again, Perspective took down one of them. Beep, I'm a Jeep, who we know is a big player, definitely over there in football and NBA. He took down one with a Houston Astros stack. And then username Under Jones cleaned house over there on Friday night, took down almost every single major tournament on DraftKings. So he had a monster day. Would imagine that guy's going to take a lot of those tournament winnings and fire a lot of bullets at their qualifiers. Even though he has one, I'm sure he's going to go for more. So definitely a big shout out to him. Trend over the last few days is that, we're still seeing ace pitchers getting blown up. And while, an ace pitcher is going to have 30 to 35 starts in a given year, and maybe 15 to 20% of those starts are not going to hit value, it just seems like it's a lot more because it's early on in the season. So, McHugh, Arrieta, Shields, Archer, all those guys got blown up over the last few days. Now, the thing about it is hopefully your bats came through. I know I had McHugh, Arrieta, and Archer over the weekend, and I was fortunate enough to still win the majority of the head-to-heads and the 50-50s. So again, that's why we tell you to continue to play those contests, because even if you have a bad day, you can still win, because there's other people that are going to be on those players as well. Now in tournaments, that's a whole nother story, and that's why for the most part in tournaments, a lot of people do not take ace pitchers because so many people own them. And if they do blow up, then they're going to have advantage over the entire field. So that's why you have a strategy of what a lot of guys do is go value on the pitchers in tournaments and then try to load up on hitting or load up on a certain team or two teams. And then hopefully those particular teams go off. That's really the difference between your head-to-heads, 50-50s, and your tournaments when it comes to pitching. And that's something I actually talked about over the last 2 weeks over at RotoWire. If you check out rotowire.com/daily or hit their daily logo on the homepage. 2 articles I wrote over the last 2 weeks specifically for FanDuel, but I think you can use them in other areas as well. Really talking about strategy to use starting pitchers in your 50-50s and heads-ups. And then this week's article is a strategy to use in tournaments and what some of the target scores are. And now the target scores were for FanDuel, but we can put those out there for DraftKings and for Fantasy Aces as well in a future article or in the notes. So something I definitely would check out, especially if you're a new player, beginner player. or somebody who may be struggling on picking pitchers and not hitting value. So that's something that you can take a look at. Mondays are busy for me as far as appearances on the radio. RotoWire at 1 p.m. Eastern on SiriusXM Fantasy. We go for about 15 minutes there, typically referencing the article that I wrote and then diving into that a little bit further. And then over at Sports Zone 1060 out of Phoenix, you can hit them up on their website, Sports Zone 1060 AM, and look for 4:15 Eastern. I talk about fantasy baseball, daily, season, and some of the waiver wire pickups that you might want to take a look at there. So those are two places you can check me out. SiriusXM, if you can get it on demand as well after the spot. Sometimes they do put it up on SoundCloud, and then with Sports Zone 1060, they do put it up on SoundCloud. So I'll usually tweet those links out on my Twitter account at Fantasy Rath. One of the things I want to make mention to you guys, we do ask you to contact us on Twitter, etc. But what we are doing now moving forward is for daily fantasy advice. What we're asking you to do is hit us up at rotocurve.com in the forums. We're going to have a daily thread that's a strategy thread for that given day. Any questions that you have for that given day, hit us up in the forums. It's a lot easier for one of us to get to it there. On Twitter, you're limited to 140 characters, and it's a lot of times people want an answer now, and it's just not something that's feasible. Also, we are trying to move away from giving advice on Twitter. We want to give advice in the forums on rotocurve.com, so that just be aware that if you're asking me questions, or Benny or Josh, or at RotoCurve, we do want to direct you over to the forums. It's just an easier place for us to elaborate and give you more detailed strategy and more personal attention over there instead of on Twitter where it's a limited characters. And again, we are here to try to build the site, so that's something that we're trying to do. FanDuel salaries. Real quick, actually, the pitchers for the day. There's a lot of good pitchers out there. I'll run down some of the top four guys. Felix, -140 favorite with a 7 total at LA Angels going against Shoemaker. Dallas Keuchel is a -185 favorite. Who would ever thought the Houston Astros would be a 185 favorite? 7.5 total against Texas Detweiler. Could be a lot of Houston Astro right-handed batsmen tonight, especially in tournaments. Zimmerman is a 165 favorite with a 7 total against Miami, David Phelps. And then Kershaw is a -170 favorite, 7 total on the road at Milwaukee against Kyle Loesch. Another big number for Kershaw on the road, and probably somebody I might stay away from again. There's just too many other options. I don't like laying the big wood on the road, so we'll see how the lineups play out and where we go from there. FanDuel salaries, just to let you know, they have increased Arizona and Colorado today significantly. Paul Goldschmidt went up $1,000 to $6,100, and Troy Tulowitzki went up to $800K. This is something very interesting that people have always complained about, that you can stack Colorado games on FanDuel because they don't adjust the salaries. Well, it looks like they are. There's been no mention of it from them that I have seen anyway. So I'll be curious to see if there's a mention and talk about it in the industry today. But FanDuel did juice the Colorado game today, so be aware of that. I think it's something they had to do. I just think it was interesting with everything that's going on with their salaries. I really don't know. But for the most part, outside of the Arizona game, nothing else really moved. DraftKings, obviously, Arizona, Colorado went up. Looks like Toronto and Washington has also gone up as well. Kind of curious about the Washington one. I know it's David Phelps, but it's a pitcher's ballpark, so a little bit wondering on that one. And in the Toronto Yankee game, looks like there's a high total in that game, and I believe it's Chase Whitley on the other side, so that's probably why they juiced up those. And a lot of salaries went down: Milwaukee, Yankees, Oakland, Philly, San Diego, and Seattle. So be aware that those are teams whose salaries have come down in price, and something that you might be able to take advantage of. We'll be back later on today between 6 and 6:30. Going to try to hit you a little bit earlier and give you a little bit longer video, as we do not have a curve show today. So I'll hit you a little bit earlier with some more detailed, in-depth analysis for tonight's action on the DFS Minute PM edition. Mike Rathburn here signing off. Check me out today on dailyroto.com. Going to be doing a podcast again with my buddy Tony Sincata, talking about a lot of good stuff in DFS baseball strategy, and definitely you'll find those links out on Twitter, probably around 9 a.m. Eastern time today. As we always say here at RotoCurve, stay classy, DFS.